Let me mute first. Sorry.
Sounds good. All right. So we'll get started. I'll take you through, there's a few things we're going to take you through. Some is just an overall view of HR and what we offer throughout Summit, and how we're set up a little bit. Then we'll talk a lot about our development programs that we have for all employees, especially the next step in our early career development, which is our occupational development program, operational development program, sorry. And then we're going to talk just about kind of early career things and my advice to you as you're navigating this. As I was looking at it last night and reading through it this morning, it did dawn on me that you guys are entering a new world, and especially in our industry, which is fairly high touch. Like most of you talked about, your construction classes will be in person because they have to be. You know, as we went through this pandemic and as we talked about construction being an essential business, it was very fortunate to Summit that we were in that category and could keep working and are doing really well throughout this time. It does offer challenges when the rest of the world is moving to a lot of online and virtual things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about ways you might be able to navigate that as you move through your early career. So next slide, Amanda.
Give me just a minute. I don't know why it's not moving.
The other thing I'll say, guys, is you can raise your hand, unmute, interrupt me, ask me questions at any time. I want this to be interactive. I don't just want to be this talking head with the weird background behind me. To go through everything. I really want to answer any questions that you have going forward. So the first thing that we'll talk about is that when you're looking at HR used to be in many times an administrative function. Throughout the last 20 years, HR has really grown to be a very integral part of the business. I had a really strong CEO who I learned under, who talked about the CHRO, or the head of HR, and the financial person were their two biggest confidants, because you had people as an asset, and then your financials and having to understand. So you have to understand your people and you have to understand your finances to run a business very well. So having an HR strategy that is aligned with the business is essential. We're unique within Summit because of our decentralized nature. So when we're looking at HR, we have kind of different strategies that definitely have to be aligned. You first have to take a look at the overall business strategy. Then you have to take a look at the overall Summit HR strategy, and then the OpCo HR strategy needs to align to that as well. Under that, we have specific areas that we work in and push forward. The first is talent acquisition, and many of you would probably know that as recruiting and onboarding. So Amanda runs our university relations recruiting in coordination with many of the OpCos. So that's a special arm of recruiting that we do. But there's a science and an art to all of that, making sure that we get the right candidates and making sure that we are getting our name out there, and then making sure we are making the process well run. And the next two are probably the biggest that touch every employee as you're going through your life cycle as at a company. The first is talent management. So talent management isn't just disciplinary actions. It's also development. It's also making sure people are in the right job at the right time. It's making sure that we are prepared for the future as our older generations start to exit the workplace. And making sure that we're utilizing all the learning and development tools that we have in place, or kind of toolkits to offer that development to our employees. So those two are the main thing that we do for employees as they are part of the company. The bookend of that is total rewards, and that includes compensation and benefits. So that's an area where we are constantly looking at the market, constantly trying to figure out, are we paying our people an appropriate wage? Are we making sure that they are incentivized the right ways through bonus plans or long-term incentive plans, or even just perks that we're offering, gym memberships, those type of things? We're constantly evaluating to see what is incentivizing our employees to make sure that they feel like the company values what they're doing and that they strive hard to meet the needs of the business. The other end of that, which is very typical, is our benefits side of things. So at Summit, we have really put together what we would consider a strong benefits package that is complemented by a wellness program. So we're trying to get healthier individuals all around, not just health-wise, but financial-wise, mental-wise, and make sure we're offering everything that we need to offer to them to have healthy, productive employees. And then make sure we balance that with having a good set of benefits at the right price to where the employees can afford to take advantage of many of the offerings that we give. The two underlying things that we have with that are culture and engagement, and then HR operations, which I think are really a lot of the foundation of these things. So building the right culture, making sure that the employees stay engaged is really a foundational item that we constantly need to work at, and it constantly is changing. The interesting thing about culture and engagement is that it is very localized to start with. So you may have found, even in the time that you've been here, that certain groups have just a different working group has a different culture than another working group. Trying to align all those, trying to make sure that when employees come in and they feel like a part of a team, feel like they belong, and feel like they're attributing to a very strong, good culture is something that we constantly work at. So part of that is engagement. Engaged employees tend to put a lot more discretionary effort towards things. And so we want to make sure that people feel engaged and feel like they're appreciated as they're working for the company. And then HR operations is really all the systems that keep us going. So systems and process and compliance. So we have a big push to implement more of our HRIS system, so HR information system. And that is a big job to do for 6,500 employees, and make sure that we get that put in right so that we get the right data and have process to make sure things are efficient. And then the fun part of HR, which is always making sure that we're compliant. So the next slide tells you a little bit about, and we won't spend a lot of time on it because it's fairly busy, but the next slide is really just all the different areas that HR spans. So we go all the way from just managing the function to rewards and benefits, developing employees, recruiting new employees, managing existing, enabling organizational effectiveness, and then the workforce strategy. So there's just a lot that goes into this, and we have a great team at the OpCos and at the Summit headquarters that try to drive all this for all the employees moving forward. Amanda. So in 2020, I'll tell you just a little bit of our focus areas. So we looked at talent management, and we're trying to provide a more, a stronger performance development cycle that has an annual cycle and fits all together and builds upon each other. And then we also looked at our potential development, which is more of a strategic move. So taking our high potential employees, our early career development employees, and making sure that we're connecting everything together so that we are set for the future and giving those that need attention in that development, and make sure we have programs built for them. We also, in total rewards, are using different components. So again, I said we're always analyzing the components for total rewards, trying to figure out what we need to do for them. And then we built some efficiencies where we put the merit process in Employee Navigator, which is our HR information system. In talent acquisition, we're getting more data out of the system so we can do better workforce planning. So for instance, when the pandemic hit, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we would be an essential employee or not. So we had a lot of analysis done around if we needed to lay off employees or furlough employees, where would we do it and what would the impact be? So we're really taking a look at how to do our workforce planning. And then on the opposite side, as we grow and as we do acquisitions and as we do other things, how do we make sure that we have an adequate workforce set and ready to go for those type of things? We're also trying to up our hiring. So not just getting butts in seats, as it's called, but making sure that we are having quality hires as we bring them on, which would equal longer retention. Learning and development has been a big push. We've implemented some new training programs, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, around some different learning modules and different ways to make sure that people are getting developed. Engagement and culture, we're trying to do it in 3 different ways. So we can define it, we can say what it is, people actually feel it happening and can experience it going. And then a new area, not new as in it doesn't happen at the company, but new as in we're going to formalize some things around it, which is our diversity, equity, and inclusion learning. So making sure that the goodwill that people have towards each other just continues to move forward. And we put a focus on that. As you know, in this industry, women are not a high percentage of our employees. So that's one of the areas that we're working on, seeing how to get more women into this industry across the board. And then we have our systems and process. So within many of the things that we do being decentralized, we're trying to make sure that we're doing it in the most efficient way, yet in a localized manner. And then, as I mentioned before, we have a big implementation of recruiting and onboarding, the module within our information system, or HRIS, and that'll be a big lift as we move forward. So this is the area I think that will really interest you, and Amanda's going to dive a little bit deeper into this in a few slides, but we have 2 distinct early career development programs. You guys have seen that you're in the intern program, and we're trying to pull it together through the INCLINE program. This is usually a week long in Denver, and you get all the information that you've gotten over the virtual sessions, but we're trying to make sure that it stays very local to begin with, that you have engagement within your OPCO, you're learning what the business is like, you're really getting immersed in some of those areas, doing some rotational experience so you're not just stuck in one area, and then pulling it together at a summit level, which is what these virtual sessions have done, that Amanda pulls together to bring you together and see that outside of the OPCO, we are a big family across Summit. The next level, and I won't dive too deep into this, I don't want to steal the thunder from Amanda because she's done such a great job on this. The next level is for early career hires. So those that are just coming out of college, or those that are maybe a year or 2 within their career, we would bring them into kind of an accelerated management development program where we're looking at technical training, leadership and development, assigning a mentor so that they really have an avenue to learn other things and get different perspectives, and then give a much deeper overview of some of our centralized process. So part of the great part of Summit is being a individualized, localized culture, really great kind of family to work for, but then having this much bigger group that you can tap into for resources and information of a large public company. So just to give you a little bit about how we are looking at development, a little different than we have in the past, we're really focusing on what we call the 3 E's of development. The first is experience. So 70% of learning really happens through experience. So as you can see through your intern program, and then when Amanda talks about our operational development program, we're trying to give you guys as many experiences as you can. On the job, special projects, job rotations, some challenging assignments that might be out of your comfort zone. 20% of learning has been proven to be by exposure. So it really is just seeing how things are done, getting feedback on how you're doing things, peer networking, so getting together with others in the interim program, in the operational development program, then adding some coaching and mentoring onto it, and then exposing you to some of the professional associations or memberships that we have. And then the last is kind of what the traditional thing of development has been, which is education, so it's trainings, it's e-learning, it's looking at different ways that we can do kind of the college studies that you do, but make sure that that continues throughout your career. So we're trying to do less of these kind of, what a lot of employees would say, like boring online courses, and focusing a lot on the experience and exposure piece. Don't get me wrong, education is still a big part of it, but I think most people learn and grow within the exposure and the experience portions of it. And then last but not least, I think this is the last slide I'll talk before Amanda goes into it, is when we're building these, it's really, I think I have one more after this. As we build these, I think we're really looking at creating a continuous cycle of development. So a progressive leadership path. So we have individual contributor and emerging leader courses that we put people through, trying to hit all 3 E's. We have a frontline leadership program that we put emerging leaders or managers or just new managers through around kind of the fundamentals of managing. The mid-level leadership programs are those that are managing managers, essentially. So there's a different level of leadership and development and focus and competencies you need to look at for that. And then we have just launched and will launch an executive leadership program that it will be a pretty exclusive group that we will take through on an 18-month program. They will have to be nominated, they will have to go through an assessment, and then we will spend some really good tailored time on making sure that we're developing our next generation of executive leaders within the company. As a complement to that, we have our ad hoc program. So we have rainy day sessions, which are kind of quick little, maybe 30-minute things that if a crew, is just waiting out some rain and there's an opportunity, they can go in and do some quick learnings on different things. There's also individual workshops. So if there's a specific need we're trying to meet, we will build a workshop on that. And then we have various coaching programs across the OPCOs. The way we measure this, Amanda, on the next slide, is really looking at performance reviews. So most of what we're trying to put in place, we want to have some measurement to. So not measurement only on your performance, but on, are we doing a good job developing what we need to develop? Are we doing a good job meeting the needs of our employees? So this cycle goes and starts with goal setting at the beginning of the year. Then there's a mid-year check-in to see, are those goals on track? Do they need to be adjusted based on any business conditions or changes that may have happened? And those are adjusted. Then at the end of the year, the employee does a self-review to where they judge on how they think they completed the goals and their performance throughout the year. And then, of course, there's the annual end-of-year review that you and your manager will have. All of that now is connected to our merit cycle. So as I said earlier, we had put merit in the system. So these scores and this information gets fed into our merit cycle and can help make some decisions, which is what we call our pay for performance philosophy as we go through Summit. So I know that may have been boring and it's kind of quick to go through all that we do with HR, but I wanted to give you guys some insight into this area and really what we're trying to do to get our employees set up for success and make sure that it aligns to the business goals of Summit and of your OPCO as we move forward. So any questions on that? Okay, Amanda?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So thank you, Tina. And going back a couple slides, Tina kind of broke out the 2 main early career talent programs that we have. We really try to create a consistent experience in the internships. They'll all be really driven by the operating companies that you work for. So they're a little bit different, but I think, foundationally, they have very similar aspects. We want you guys to have exposure to the management team. We really want to give you those stretch goals, doing a presentation in front of your peers, in front of the team, getting different exposure. So that's all the internship side of what you guys are experiencing now. And then as you graduate, and I believe all of you guys come from an operating company that has historically had a management trainee program. I did an orientation for Boxley this morning. 2 ODP trainees started today. And Boxley, Charles was on the call, one of the mentors, and he said that Boxley has been doing a management trainee program for over 20 years. And so that's just kind of the level of commitment and expertise that they have in developing talent for their business. And so a year ago, what we did is we visited with all the operating companies. We said, okay, you already have a management trainee program. Where are your successes and what do you do really well? And then those that didn't, we said, what are your challenges to create one? And so at the end of that, we created what is called the Operations Development Program. And the reason why, what I'm struggling with is we call it Summit Materials because, there's kind of an overarching behind the scenes of where I kind of help and coordinate, but really it's still done at the local level. This program is driven still by the operating companies. Employees that become ODP trainees are hired by the operating companies. So I don't want that to get confused, but we do offer some of that training that's across this entire program. And so we currently are in operations. This is geared towards our aggregate division, construction, ready mix. This can be replicated to finance development programs, safety development programs, sales. But right now we really are focused in recruiting for the operations side of our business. And so ODP trainees, as the first one is, you get hired within our operations, within the OpCo operations, and it really helps us serve and to create talent across and opportunities across our organization. We are looking for, when we are recruiting for this program, really driven individuals. It's in the operations. I think one commonality that we have across all of our businesses and our leadership team is that we stretch and give you guys stretch jobs and goals and really try to challenge so that you feel like you make an impact. And I think that's also what's great about this program is that you're in the day-to-day of an operating company. And so you get to make an impact at that small family, type business rather than feel like you're a part of a 6,000 person company. And so our goal is to turn, speaking with college students, is that we want to hire you and kind of accelerate your career into a frontline leader and manager in our field operations. And then while you're at a operating company, we want to hire you permanently and find that management position at that operating company. But if you're looking for other opportunities or you're, have more mobility and you want to see the world, that's something that kind of creating the standardized training allows you to have a little bit more mobility and a little bit more opportunities across Summit as a whole, saying that, hey, you are trained in this program. So that's really what this program does offer you guys and then offers our company as well. I'll go through quickly kind of what it looks like. You saw these same 4 areas on Tina's slide. Really primarily you'll be spending your time on technical training. And so going back to the 3 E's, that's your experience. I try to divvy out the time spent. You're going to be spending over 90% of your time on technical training in those first 2 years and really getting in-depth exposure into the business, primarily in one line of business. And so I said, right now we have aggregate, construction, and ready mix is really the 3 lines of businesses that we're focusing on. And then you'll come together as a group, and as each year, in June, we'll start a new group of ODP trainees. And you'll come together to learn and get leadership and development training. And so it is the emerging leadership development training. And so those are for first-time managers. And it really just helps supplement and strengthen your, as an early manager, and oftentimes managing people that have been in the business much longer. So we really want to make you successful and give you the skill set to lead a team. And then Tina also showed that we go from just really into one operating company. We want you guys to learn really quickly kind of how Summit Materials has their business and kind of give you that expanded business knowledge. And so when you guys come together as a group, you'll meet with a lot of different departments. And on the next slide, I'll kind of show you what that looks like. From safety, business, our strategy department, accounting, finance. And so just beyond your technical skills and maybe what you went to school for, you'll get a much broader and holistic viewpoint of who Summit is and where we have that interdependence. And then what I think will set Summit and the operating companies, this program, apart is that mentorship and that commitment to mentorship. Individually, those operating companies that had a management training program all focused on a mentorship component. Now we've taken the strengths of all those individualized programs and really formalized it and have, a really big purpose and plan. And so, you will not drop, but you will always have the support of your manager. You'll be assigned a kind of mentor coach, and then also get exposure to these executive team as part of ODP. I'll pause for a minute. Any questions? So what our ODP, like a sample curriculum, looks like for an aggregate ODP training is the OpCo leads the technical and the mentor program. And so again, this is just related to aggregate trainees. You'll get minimum requirements of exposure in our environmental health and safety, quality control, mine planning, material sales. You'll get just a broad overview of the company that you work for. You'll understand and have an understanding of the financials at the operating company level. You'll do a deep dive into the equipment, inventory, processes. Probably the most time that you'll spend, and that could be upwards of a year prior to your permanent placement, is mine operations. And then you'll also understand from a high level what are the best practices in your line of business, so the aggregates. I talked briefly again about the mentor program in ODP. You'll be assigned a manager from day one that you report to, daily, and that they can kind of help guide you and walk you through starting this program and where you where you'll meet these minimum requirements. And then you'll be assigned a official and formal mentor, and that will be a 12-month process with that mentor. And so, they'll really walk you through and kind of deep dive on an introspective level and really help grow you in your career. And I think to have someone so early on dedicated to that growth is going to be, outstanding and really helpful. And then again, we call it the executive sponsor. So, just pulling in all levels of the business and saying, here's the talent that we are committing to and that we're investing in. And so that everyone kind of knows, and I think it will allow for a lot more opportunities for everyone. And then on the Summit side, so this is where kind of I help guide the program. So the OpCo side is your day-to-day job. And then on the Summit side, we want to pull the groups together once a quarter, so 4 times a year. And you'll be doing kind of that formal classroom work in addition to some exposure, but this is the education side. And so you'll be getting exposure and education on kind of the centralized side of our safety department, like I said, strategy, finance, IT, really what you need to understand as an early manager and how you can utilize the Summit network to its biggest capabilities. Our sales department and our company goes through a sales boot camp. So you guys would be going through that as well as a ODP trainee. Our performance team is investing in continuous improvement and lean training, so getting exposure to that. What young managers need to understand from a legal and compliance aspect. HR will do significant training, and then understanding summit sustainability. And then we've talked a couple times, the leadership and development programming will be all topics that are geared towards emerging leaders. And so really helping you transition from part of a team to leading a team, and what it takes to do that successfully. Any comments or questions on the curriculum? And this will all take place, we hope to, in the first 2 years, that these are the topics that every ODP trainee would cover. And then the technical side, that yellow column, that would change from each line of business. So, if you're interested, if you said, I really have enjoyed my internship and I want to understand, and I'm interested in hearing more and, hopefully applying for the ODP program, the next steps are, feel free to reach out to me to share your interest in this program. We will have an application that's for all of the operating companies, even though you'll be interviewing individually with each operating company of those that you have preference for. But you can fill out an online application that will come at the beginning of September. And for those that show interest, I'll make sure that you have that link. And then we will also be having a ODP informational session, and then interviews probably at the end of September to mid part of October. So, we'll be recruiting this fall. Questions on next steps? Tina, that's, I believe, it for my slides. Is there anything you'd like to add to ODP?
Well, I want to get the group talking a little bit. So, have you guys seen programs like this at other companies or heard about other people going through these? And what's your view of it? Is it something that will be beneficial in your early career, or does it feel overwhelming?
So I know several other companies have a management trainee program. I don't know how it's structured. I've never worked for anybody else other than Boxley, but I feel like it is very helpful. It's really early on to get everything under the belt and get the career started fast. So
Great.
Thanks, Jake.
I've also heard of some management trainee programs at other companies, but I don't think they're structured in this way. I think it's more of a rotational program that you rotate from different locations and leadership roles within those locations, or like secondary leadership roles in those locations. So I think this, like the whole development and outlining it in this way, is much more beneficial than just being like thrown into the pool.
Yeah, and that we did that with thought of saying we really want you to feel connected at a local level, and we think that given that opportunity at a local level, you can experience and have, as you are more comfortable and as people are more comfortable with you, you can get those stretch responsibilities and those stretch goals. I'm sure, Abby, you have experienced that, from summer after summer of what you're given for responsibility. And so that's really by design.
Anyone else? All right, well, if you want to know more about it, Amanda is the mastermind behind developing all of this. And so if you have any questions, reach out to her. Like we talked about, this is our first year, so our first group is going through it. I'm sure we'll learn some things throughout this year and probably refine it as we go. But we think it's great, and we think it's a good way to get a kind of a jump start on our early management group. Especially as we talked about in our industry, there is a lot of tenure and a lot of experienced people that work in this group, and we kind of have a gap. So there's going to be a need for strong managers fairly soon as we move through retirements and things like that. So let us know if you're interested. All right, we'll move on Or Amanda, do you add anything? Or should we move on?
Let's move on.
Okay.
If I can hit the right button.
So the last thing that I have that I want to take you guys through in just a little bit of words of wisdom as I've been throughout my career is there's some early career tips that I would say, make sure you try to hit these. And sometimes it's very hard because when you're in a entry level position or even in a early management development program, you get focused on just doing your job. And so one of the things that I would offer to you is to take a little bit of a step back and thoughtfully plan how you want your career to go. Think about where you want to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. It's not just a fake interview question that we throw out there to take up time. It is really, if you put some thought into it and you figure out where you want to be, it's going to be a lot easier to get there, and you might not go down as many wrong roads as you may if you don't do that. So I would take some time to take a look at it. The first thing I would do is think of your career as a set of experiences. So one of the questions that I got as I was moving my career was, did you know what you wanted to do? Did you always want to be a head of HR? And I did. I always knew that I was going to be in HR, that this is where I wanted to be. But I did take small tangents to where rather than just staying in kind of the core of HR, I went in and I implemented an information systems. I went and I did compliance for a few years. I went and developed some specialized programs in training and curriculum for a few years. And it felt a little like a detour, like I could have just continued down that path. But having those varied experiences and then working in many different industries as I have has really shaped the way and given me better perspective of what I wanted to do in my career, and can take all of those and apply them regardless of what industry in. So think of just the experience you're receiving, and when you add all those up, you can get where you want to go. The other thing I would say is don't settle for a job you're not passionate about. So if you don't enjoy going to work every day and don't get excited about the work that you're doing, take a look at what would make you happy, because we spend way too much time at work to hate what we're doing every day. So make sure you don't settle in that. The other thing is focus on making a big impact immediately. So that's part of what we're doing with the ODP program. We want you to give you opportunities to make an impact, not just sit back and learn. If you have an idea, speak up. It could be something that someone's going to remember down the line, and you make a good impact, right? Good, I can't think of the word. Anyway, you make an impression. You make a good impression right away. Couldn't think of that. The next is take risks. So that's kind of along the lines where I also talked about ask that question, take some risks, maybe try something new, maybe even something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone and you're not sure if you can handle it. That's why we're make sure you get a good mentor, get people that you can ask questions to, and take those risks. It's going to propel you forward. And especially within this industry, I would say spend more time with people than your laptop. So make sure you have conversations, make sure you're asking questions, make sure you're building those relationships. One big thing I push, and I push it through my HR team as well, is measure your work outcomes and then build case studies. So we need to measure what's working and what's not working, and then we need to adjust. So being able, when it says build case studies, it's look at the full project of something. Did it work? Did it not work? And figure out where it worked and where it didn't work and where you would make adjustments the next time. Last is sacrifice today to position yourself for tomorrow. So think about your end goal. And so that might take the fact that you do work you don't necessarily want to do, but you're passionate about your end goal. And so you're doing some of that work that nobody loves to do. I'm not a big person. I don't like to fill out reports. I don't like to do things like that. But those have to get done to meet the end goal. So make sure you do what you need to do today to reach your end goal. And then the other thing I would say is travel as much as you can while learning about cultures and languages. So especially within our industry, we work in small rural areas. I grew up in a tiny farm town in Nebraska. And my world when I was growing up was really small. And so I didn't know that there was so much opportunity outside of the, little 1,000-person town that I grew up in. And as I went to college and as I went and experienced new things, I learned more and more. Then I took a job where I traveled, and I traveled to Europe, and I traveled, east to west, north to south, across the U.S. And the perspectives that I've gained and the ideas that it sparked within me, just because I saw different perspectives of how people approach things, has really helped me within my career. I can't say that I move around a lot. I lived in Nebraska, and now I've lived in Denver, Colorado for 25-ish years. So it's not as if I hopped around a lot, but I certainly take all those perspectives and everything that I've experienced, and it plays it out in my day-to-day life, both in work and outside of work. And then, as we've said a few times, is locate mentors. And the one thing I would say about mentors is not just someone that you think is really highly regarded in their job, but a mentor who lives your desired lifestyle. So there are workaholic mentors, and if that's something that you want, find someone like that. If it's someone who has found a good balance between work-life balance, but still is advancing in their career, look at that mentor. If it's someone who works hard, but really has some time to spend and focus on other like volunteer activities, community, being on school boards, those type of things, then find a mentor. So find a mentor that is essentially, when I look in the future, this is what I want to be, and this is how I want to live my life. So not just who you think is very high within the organization. So those are just some tidbits of wisdom I have with early career. You can take them for what they are, but they have helped me throughout my career as I've moved up from being an intern, an HR intern many years ago to now. So if you guys have any questions after this, or even want to reach out to me directly, I am open to any questions or having any discussions that you guys would want to have. But Amanda, I think that's the end of our presentation.
It is. You have one more inspirational quote.
Oh, yes. Amanda has seen this many times because I tend to put it in almost every presentation I do to the team or to young career people. And it's a Henry Ford quote that says, "If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." And if you think about that's true. When he was designing a car, people probably thought he was crazy. We're good enough with what we have. We have horses, we get around, we got what we need. I challenge you, especially within this industry, to think outside the box and think about what would really make what you're doing better, not just relying on what we have today and how do we improve it. So think outside the box, think about how we can make things better in unique and different ways, and apply that to your life across the work. I challenge my team to do it all the time. So any questions for me? Any questions for Amanda? All right.
Tina, I liked just kind of what my synopsis of what, especially that last career advice is, the introspection and like self-awareness. Because I think too, starting off, we think we know what we want, and then we get a little bit of experience. I think it's like the quarter life crisis is what it's called when you turn 25. But I thought I really enjoyed your advice of like self-reflecting on what makes you happy, what makes you driven. I think is important as you view success and what will get you there. So that's kind of what I took away from some of your tidbits. But and as we learn as we get older, like, wow, that really isn't important to me, and I need to be aware of that. So that's something I learned.
Great. All right. Well, if there's no questions, like I said, you guys can reach out to me individually. It's just tina.ballard@summitmaterials.com. Shoot me a note if you need anything. I hope to see you guys all go through our ODP program. I've heard great things about all of you from the opcos as we've been talking through things, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And that
Thank you.
concludes Incline this year. So I'm sorry it had to be virtual. I'm really happy we got to get together. I miss that camaraderie in Denver. But I think that we were able to serve some purpose and give you guys, thought outside of the box thinking, just outside of your internship. So I appreciate your guys' commitment to this. Bye, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
Good
great
luck at school.
Be safe.